Welcome to my second quiz on the Plantagenets. As the first one was quite successful, I've decided I'll do more. In this video, there'll be 7 questions with slightly different formats. As always, I will ask each question and then pause for a few moments to allow the viewer some thinking time. You can also pause the video. I'll then give the answer with a brief explanation. Question 1. Jacquetta of Luxembourg was the mother of which Queen of England? Was it A. Eleanor of Provence, B. Anne of Bohemia, C. Elizabeth Woodville, or D. Philippa of Hainault? The answer is C. Elizabeth Woodville. Jacquetta had initially been married to John, Duke of Bedford, the brother of Henry V, but John, a central figure in the later stages of the Hundred Years' War, had died 2 years after marrying Jacquetta. Jacquetta's second husband was Richard Woodville, with whom she'd have 14 children, including Elizabeth. The Woodvilles, of course, became extremely prominent in 15th century England during the Wars of the Roses when Elizabeth married Edward IV. Question 2. The castle pictured is called the Chateau de Vincennes. Which King of England died here in 1422? Was it A. Richard II, B. Edward III, C. Henry III, or D. Henry V? The answer is D. Henry V. Having, by sheer force of will, had himself made heir to the French crown in 1420, Henry V of England found that there was lingering resistance in France to the idea of him becoming their new king. During the siege of Meaux, beginning in late 1421, Henry became ill with dysentery, which lingered for some months, with Henry and his doctors eventually realizing he would not recover. As a result, Henry made preparations for the future and English interests in France. But with his heir not yet even 1 year old, the Hundred Years' War would be lost for England with the death of Henry V, which finally came on the last day of August 1422. Question 3. The Eleanor crosses were erected in memory of which medieval woman? Was it A. Eleanor of Provence, B. Eleanor of Castile, C. Eleanor of Aquitaine, or D. Eleanor of England? The answer is B. Eleanor of Castile. Eleanor was the first queen of Edward I, who was deeply upset at her passing in 1290. On the royal procession back to London for her funeral, Edward had the Eleanor crosses erected in Eleanor's honour, 3 of which can still be seen today. Question 4. This gorgeous tomb that you can see pictured belongs to which famous knight from English history? For this question, no options will be given. The answer is Edward the Black Prince. Edward was the son of Edward III and is regarded as one of the finest knights and military leaders of the medieval period. His beautiful tomb can be seen at Canterbury Cathedral. Question 5. A maid more accomplished than beautiful. Who is the chronicler Richard of Devizes describing here? Is it A. the Empress Matilda, B. Berengaria of Navarre, C. Eleanor of Aquitaine, or D. Isabella of Angoulême? The answer is B. Berengaria of Navarre. Although she was often overlooked by her husband Richard the Lionheart, Berengaria demonstrated in the reigns of King John and Henry III a certain strength and resolve in asserting her own rights as she attempted to recover money that was owed to her by the English crown. It should be of no surprise to anyone that promises made by King John counted for very little, and Berengaria instead had to press his son and successor Henry on the matter. Question 6. He was a brave, wise, and resourceful ruler, enterprising and successful in war. He did much fighting against the Scots, overcoming them 3 or 4 times. They were never able to beat him or stand up against him. This quote from the chronicler Jean François is describing which king of England? A. Richard I, B. Edward I, C. Edward III, or D. Henry V? The answer is B. Edward I. Edward I is of course known to history as the Hammer of the Scots, and this quote from Froissart is taken from a passage where the chronicler bemoans the weakness of the reign of Edward II, sandwiched in between the distinctly more successful reigns of his father, Edward I, and his son, Edward III. Question 7. Oldham Castle, pictured, built by King John in the 1200s, can be found in which English county? Is it A. Hampshire, B. Suffolk, C. Norfolk, or D. Essex? The answer is A. Hampshire. Oldham Castle was built as King John struggled with both his barons and the French prince Louis to cling on to his crown. In 1216, with John's dismal life and reign coming to a close, Oldham fell into Prince Louis's hands. In the 1300s, the castle would be home to the Scottish king David II, who had been captured after his defeat at the Battle of Neville's Cross. And from the following century onwards, the castle gradually fell into disrepair and ruin.